And welcome back again. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. We are Democratic Convention Day 2. And we're going to see if we can get into this real quick, see what we're looking at. If you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. The DNC is finally wrapping up their roll call. Ooh, boy, that's great. Running a little late. Sorry about that. They had the roll call going on for a while, but we are here. And so we're going to catch up with a little bit, let everybody know what's happening here. So VP Harris, she officially clinches a Democratic convention today. That's because we're watching it. So it took a long time for this convention to finish up. But while they're doing a convention, I'm telling you, it has been a rough, long day for everybody outside this convention. And let me see if I can get you on site to let you know what's been happening, because there's been a lot happening. For instance, there are protesters. They gathered near the convention. And let me see if I can show it to you a little bit. This is what's happening now, right now, while we're doing our show. So, innocently inside the convention, people are getting their roll calls. But this is what's happening really outside the convention. I want you to take a look at this.
There may be some individuals who are here today who are near the United Center, but this is certainly the group that has worked for the last year and pledged to do events like this. We reported on them a couple of weeks ago as being a group that last May went into the United Center during a Democratic convention training session and disrupted things. The Chicago police were called, and they got away before there could be any arrests made. At this point, what's happening is that this group has turned around and is now marching en masse eastbound on Madison Street. But what they're going to run into yet is another cordon of Chicago police officers who are blocking their way. So far, this has happened a couple of times.
Yeah, they might start going in circles. The Chicago Police Department has said it will be prepared. As Mark had said, they kind of had these guys, these ladies and gentlemen, boxed in, but it looks like they're moving again. If Chuck's saying they're going east on Madison, that would be away from the United Center. This is a couple miles away from the United Center. If you're just joining us live, this is in what we call the Loop here in Chicago. The United Center a little further out west. We've got two cameras going for you here. So part of our crew, sometimes the photographers are just going to try and get the best shot for us. It may get a little bit of vertigo as we move around, but we want to be sure we're safe, number one, and that we can get you the best live images as this happens here in real time. So Chuck, you said they're heading east on Madison. What would be the next cross street that you would hit down here in the Loop?
Well, there isn't going to be a cross street because the police have blocked it off. I mean, they're headed toward Union Station and the Chicago River, but they're not going to make it that far. The authorities are issuing essentially a command to disperse, which is the first of the orders that has to be given to take more aggressive actions, which would be, a mass arrest or calling in gas teams in an effort to disperse this crowd. That could be a little bit dicey because this is a canyon of high-rise buildings, and there are a lot of people in here, but that certainly is one possibility.
Yep.
So that's interesting. So if they keep on, I guess, doing this uprising, and if it's not peaceful, it looks kind of peaceful, but if it isn't peaceful, then they're going to start doing gas. And we don't want this to get to the 1960s where they had riots and everything in Chicago, in the same city. So they should continue to hopefully have a peaceful protest. So we're coming up now. I want to show you guys this. See if I can get it. You're watching Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, as we try to get you with some of the other things that are going on here. We're going to give you a little bit of who's talking. And let me see, I'm trying to get there real quick because now it's going to be starting to get a little more interesting. This person right here, Chuck Schumer, he's talking now, and we're trying to make sure that we get to him while he's talking. Let's make sure. So as he's talking, okay, we're going to hear how maybe scary he sounds. Okay? So you're watching, Keeping It Honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, as we try to find out where Chuck Schumer is at and get him to talking. Let's see. I've got a lot of video up and about. If you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011 at gmail.com. Let's see. This isn't him yet. He's one of the keynote speakers. We're trying to make sure that we get him. He's one that scares a lot of people, but then a lot of people love. So let's see, is this him? It is? No, that's not him. Live streaming, I tell you. There's good and bad of it. Now let's see, let's try him again. We're gonna see where he's at. He should be coming. Okay, he should be coming soon. Let's see. And we can't play a lot of music, which I found out. We're gonna go back to maybe a little bit of similar. So let's see. We are messing around. Not really messing around, but trying to get them going. Let's see. And I'm trying not to play music too. Should be coming up soon. Just haven't gotten it yet. We're playing a lot of music here, so we're trying to be careful of what we're playing. We have a lot of stuff going on. We have a lot of stuff going on. We're going to see about this one. If this is one we could use. Okay. We're going back. And we are trying to see where we at here. Okay. We got Kamala on screen. And you would be amazed how many screens I have. Okay, I think here we go. Let's see where we at. All right, there's Chuck Schumer. Where is he? So we're having a little technical difficulties. We're going to get it straight because we got to make sure we take out the music. You're watching Keeping It Honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. We're looking at a different feed. Yesterday we did a lot of different feeds, and it was a long, long night. Long, long night. We were on for about 5.5 hours, but we were able to do a lot of things, though. We really were. We hope you enjoyed everything. Tonight's going to be Barack Obama, which is going to be really good. I hate Buffy. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I hate Buffy. So we have Chuck Schumer coming up soon. And that'll be as soon as I can get this working. You have any comments, questions? You let me know. Telephone number is 216-702-3718. I'm working this as I'm talking to you. 216-702-3718. And we are going to get on this feed where Kamala she's speaking live at a rally. She's doing a rally now, which is interesting. But first, we have Anna coming up, and we're going to see what she's talking about. So you're watching, Keeping It Honest. Here's truly Anthony Parker. Day 2, the second day of the Democratic Convention.
Was going to happen because they had this counter programming event where they're doing the speech in Milwaukee. We were wondering why. It was just about a 2-hour drive from here. It all makes sense. They tapped into it live. We have two guests here who can talk about. She is legitimate. Okay, optimistic. Okay, we just want to be very clear with our viewers here. Obviously, it's things are changing. It's a bit chaotic. Kamala Harris is speaking once again, even though there's someone else speaking at the convention, and we have guests here. We're going to listen to the vice president right now. Members of Mar-a-Lago.
And I know we are all deeply grateful for his lifetime of service to our nation. Thank you, Joe.
And I don't feel so bad because NBC News, they're having trouble. So they've got somebody speaking at the convention center now, while also Ms. Harris is doing a live rally in Milwaukee. So why wouldn't she be at the convention? But yet she's doing a live rally. So when they're doing a live rally, they're taking away from the speakers from the convention. And that's Anna Navarro, I think. And this is Vice President Harris. Let's listen in.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe, from yesterday. Period. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Also, thank you,
So,
Trump.
Wisconsin, we have 77 days until the election. 77 days. And look, we know this is going to be a tight race until the very end. We have some hard work ahead of us. We have hard work ahead of us, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work.
And just tell your vice presidential candidate to stop walking around you. It reminds you when Donald Trump was doing that to Hillary Clinton. Just saying.
And with your help this November, we will win.
And I guess they are making everybody at the convention watch this live rally.
We'll win.
So did the speaker
We will win.
stop speaking?
We will win. Because we will, because we're going to put in the hard work over the next 77 days. No.
I think she meant hard work or work, whatever she said.
Oh, no, we haven't already won. 77 days of work to do, my friends. So listen, make no mistake. As we all know, this campaign is not just about us versus Donald Trump. This is not just about us versus Donald Trump. This is about two very different visions for our nation. One, ours, focused on the future. The other, focused on the past. And Wisconsin, we fight for the future. We fight for the future. We believe in the future. A future with affordable health care. A future with affordable child care. A future with affordable housing and paid leave. That's the future we believe in. We believe in a future where we build an opportunity economy, where every American has the opportunity to own a home, start a business, and build wealth, including intergenerational wealth. That's what we believe in. We believe in the future of our country. We believe in a future where we lower the cost of living for America's families. And when I am president, I will bring down the cost of groceries by making sure markets are competitive and fair. Together with Coach, we will take on Big Pharma and cap the cost of prescription medication for all Americans. We will take on the high cost of housing, understanding so many people are trying to fulfill the American dream, and we need to give people help to get there. In fact, last week I announced my plan to build.
So we're bringing you back from Milwaukee here to Chicago, where you're seeing the Senate's top Democrat, New York Senator Chuck Schumer, taking the stage. We're going to listen in back live here in Chicago.
Now, just to let you know, a couple years back, I aired a clip too, not too long ago, where Chuck Schumer was in the room. She was in the room. They were about to do a press conference. She said something while he was going up to the mic, and he shushed her. Like, shh. And then she stood back. Wow. So now she's in the middle of her speech, which she has the convention people watching live in another place, and they cut her off, and they go to Chuck Schumer. Let's hear what he has to say. Keeping it honest.
At the DNC to this.
Now, just let me hear you if you're ready for President Kamala Harris. Friends, we're here to talk about one thing: tomorrow, and building a better tomorrow for all Americans. This November, we can choose a brighter, a fairer, a freer future, or we can relive the dark night of Trump's American carnage. Only one candidate will move America forward: Kamala Harris. Vice President Harris has been the best partner Senate Democrats could ever have asked for. Under her and President Biden's leadership, Senate Democrats lowered prescription drug prices.
Told you he was kind of scary. Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, Senate Majority Leader since 2021. Okay. But he's been a senator, listen to this, since 1999. 25 years ago. He's the first Jewish minority leader. Under his leadership, the Senate confirmed the most diverse slate of federal judicial nominees, but he's been in office for 25 years. Maybe not that long, I don't know. But listen to him.
And created millions of good paying American jobs. I worked with Kamala Harris when she was Senator Harris.
And he told her
I
shit.
saw a leader who was fearless, who stood up for middle-class families like the one she was raised in.
But she also shushed her. Remember that, Chuck? I wonder, does she remember that?
Who focused on things that really mattered. Helping parents raise their kids. Safe neighborhoods, safe schools, and building an opportunity economy that gives everyone a shot at the American dream. She will lead America forward into a brighter future, but she can't do it alone. She needs a Democratic majority in the Senate of the United States. Now, my friends, 2 years ago, the naysayers said Senate Democrats stood no chance in the midterms. I told them, just you wait. We're going to keep the Senate and maybe pick up a seat or two. And that's exactly what happened. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my good friends at this convention, I am telling all of you now, we're going to hold the Senate again, and we're poised to pick up seats. A Democratic majority to create good-paying jobs and lower costs, to defend a woman's right to choose, to deliver for communities back home. Our senators are doing it, like Jackie Rosen, delivering high-speed rail for Nevada. John Tester, bringing high-tech jobs to Montana. And Bobby Casey and Sherrod Brown and Tammy Baldwin and Martin Heinrich fixing bridges in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Wisconsin and New Mexico. We also have amazing candidates. Ruben Gallego, Angela Alsobrooks, Andy Kim, Alyssa Slotkin, Lisa Blunt, Rochester, Colin Allred, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. And folks, listen to this. More than half of our candidates are candidates of color. We're making the Senate look like America.
That was interesting. So half of them are candidates of color. Did he need to say that? Who knows? But he said it. Let's see in the next days, is he going to take any flack for that?
Now let's compare that with Senate Republicans. Senate Republicans pretend to care about middle-class families, but they voted no on expanding the child tax credit, and J.D. Vance didn't even show up to vote.
Wow. All right, JD. You got kids.
Senate Republicans pretend to care about the border, but they voted no on the strongest border bill in a decade. Republicans tend to care about freedom, but they voted no on a woman's right to choose. No to safeguard IVF. No to birth control. That is just a taste of their extreme agenda. Is that what we want for America?
No.
Do we want a Republican Senate that assaults reproductive freedoms? Do we want a Republican Senate that cuts taxes for the rich, rigs the game for big oil and big pharma? Well, folks, the choice is ours.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me close on a personal note. As the highest ranking Jewish elected official in American history, I want my grandkids and all grandkids to never face discrimination because of who they are. But Donald Trump, this is a guy who peddles anti-Semitic stereotypes. He even invited a white supremacist to Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, his prejudice goes in all directions. He fuels Islamophobia and issued a Muslim ban as president. Tonight, folks, I am wearing this blue square to stand up to anti-Semitism, to stand up to all hate. Our children, our grandchildren, no matter their race, no matter their creed, their gender or family, deserve better than Donald Trump's American carnage. So, are you ready to make sure Donald Trump never, ever gets near the White House again? So let's elect Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and a Democratic majority in the Senate and keep the torch of freedom burning bright for generations to come. On to victory in November.
Yeehaw.
You
Yeehaw.
have been listening, of course, to Senator Chuck Schumer.
If you remember that. Wow. Coming up is going to be Bernie Sanders. Can't wait for that. Bernie Sanders. Coming up. What do you think about that? Bernie Sanders will be coming up. And he's going to be coming up soon. Whew, man. So let's take a break a little bit. You're watching Keeping It Honest. There we go. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. We're going to have a split screen showing for a little bit as we talk. Telephone number 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Email address, parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. Let me give you a list of people. It's been crazy today. We did 5.5 hours yesterday on Convention 1. Convention 2 was kind of weird because it did the roll call, so we couldn't come on yet because there was music playing. And then we've got so many things going on internet-wise, video-wise, that when you have too many, it slows everything down. So Chuck Schumer, he's the Senate Majority Leader. He just talked. Bernie Sanders is coming up. He's a big one of the night. Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, she's coming up. Douglas Emhoff, he's the husband of Kamala. Michelle Obama, and closing out will be Barack Obama. So the two Obamas. It's going to be a great show. And we had the one lady, Anna, as she was doing her speech, they cut in the middle of her speech, which was crazy, to Kamala, who's on a rally, who could have been at the convention. So does that show you, whoa, man, I can't take accolades. I gotta go because this is more important. Or is it giving her a chance, hey, you know what? I can kill a couple stones. I can do my rally, but then also have my rally inside of the convention. Let's check out Bernie Sanders right now. Let's hope we can get him. Okay, we're going to go back just a little bit. All right. And here we go. Bernie Sanders.
And now to Senator Bernie Sanders representing the more progressive wing of the party here on stage live in Chicago.
All right, let's let him talk.
My fellow Americans, it is an honor. It is an honor to be with you tonight because we're laying the groundwork for Kamala Harris to become our next president.
So remember, not too long ago, he ran. He literally was third party, had everybody believing in him. And then once he didn't get it, he became inundated and literally became that total Democratic person. Instead of pushing Dr. West, who was a third party independent, he pushed Joe Biden. As I asked Dr. West, was it a slap in the face? Dr. West said he was hurt, but he still loves his brother. So tonight, his brother is endorsing Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, where's Dr. West?
And let me tell you why that is so important. I want you all to remember where we were 3.5 years ago. We were in the midst of the worst public health crisis in 100 years and the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. 3,000 Americans were dying every day, and our hospitals were overwhelmed with COVID patients.
And how many people forget that 3,000 Americans were dying every day? If you're COVID or not COVID, how did this impact you? But Bernie is saying 3,000 Americans were dying every day. And even if you didn't believe in COVID, what about the people surrounding you? Maybe there were people you knew that died of COVID. Maybe you thought it was conspiracy theory. But no matter what, whether it's true or not, our world was affected in that time. And that was only a couple years back.
All across the country, businesses were shutting down. Unemployment was soaring. Workers were losing their health insurance. Schools were closing. State and city budgets were running out of money. People were being evicted from their homes. Children in America were going hungry. That was the reality the Biden-Harris administration faced as they entered the Oval Office. A nation suffering, a nation frightened, and people looking to their government for support. And within 2 months of taking office, our government did respond. We passed the American Rescue Plan, which provided $1,400 for every man, woman, and child in the working class. We extended and expanded benefits for the unemployed. We provided emergency assistance for small businesses to stay open. We guaranteed health care coverage to tens of millions of Americans through one of the largest expansions of Medicaid in history. We provided rent relief and mortgage assistance, which prevented tenants and homeowners from being evicted. We established emergency food programs for hungry children and the elderly, and protected the pensions of millions of union workers and retirees from being slashed by up to 65%. Oh, and by the way, we cut childhood poverty by over 40% through an expanded child tax credit.
So far, that sounds good. Remember, Cliff Notes, check it out for yourself.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, Vice President Harris. Thank you, Democratic Congress. Now, I say all of this not to relive that difficult moment, but to make one simple point. When the political will is there, government can effectively deliver for the people of our country.
So, if the government is a big business, are you for it, Bernie Sanders, or against it?
And now we need to summon that will again, because too many of our fellow Americans are struggling every day to just get by, to put food on the table, to pay the rent, and to get the health care they need. Brothers and sisters, bottom line, we need an economy that works for all of us, not just the billionaire class.
That sounds like old Bernie, and he's giving a speech as if it's the best one of his life. Everybody coming to this convention, they're giving their A1 to make sure that they make Kamala the A1 president.
My fellow Americans, when 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck, the top 1% have never, ever had it so good. And these oligarchs tell us we shouldn't tax the rich. The oligarchs tell us we shouldn't take on price gouging. We shouldn't expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision. And we shouldn't increase Social Security benefits for struggling seniors. Well, I've got some bad news for them.
I wonder what the bad news is, Bernie, because even with the tax increase, I think for the billionaires, I think it was going from, I want to say under 5% to 25%. Some people say that's a lot. If you're a billionaire, it doesn't really matter. But I guess that's one of the biggest things out there. So tell us the news, Bernie.
That is precisely what we are going to do.
I sense a drop mic time, Bernie, but the mic is right in front of you.
And we're going to win this struggle because this is precisely what the American people want from their government.
But again, my question is, did they get it in the first 3.5 years of Biden and Harris?
And my friends, at the very top of that to-do list is the need to get big money out of our political process. Billionaires in both parties should not be able to buy elections, including primary elections.
And I can tell you from somebody that ran for Congress and local councils out here where I live, that big money is the hated thing out there for people who are honest and try to do the right thing. But when you're not as politically powerful monetarily as a lot of people, then there's a lot of, I guess, independent people out here who should be around other independent people out here to make it grow so we can support people like you, Bernie, who don't burn us, show us to burn in the long run.
For the sake of our democracy, we must overturn the disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision and move toward public funding of elections. And let me tell you what else we must do. We need to join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a human right, not a privilege.
I agree with that.
We need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. We need to pass the PRO Act so that workers can organize a union and gain the decent pay and benefits they deserve. We need to strengthen public education, raise teachers' salaries,
Agree with that.
and make sure that every American, regardless of income, receives the higher education he or she needs.
In a perfect world, that would be great. Realistically,
We need to take on Big Pharma
big pharma.
and cut our prescription drug costs in half
That's true.
so that we no longer pay any more than other countries.
With the
Joe and Kamala made sure that no senior in America pays over $35 a month for insulin.
That's great.
We need to make sure that reality is true for every American.
Not just senior citizens.
I look forward to working with Kamala and Tim to pass this agenda.
Why not Joe?
And let
then?
us be very clear. This is not a radical agenda. But let me tell you what a radical agenda is.
Because people have been comparing Kamala to you, Bernie, saying that she's more radical than you, and you're speaking now at the convention. So I'm curious, what is a radical agenda? Let's break it down to everybody, Bernie.
And that is Trump's Project 2025.
People, all I got to say is let's read it because people are talking about it, the good and bad of Project 2025. Here's Bernie's side.
At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, giving more tax breaks to billionaires is radical. Putting forth budgets to cut Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid is radical. Letting polluters destroy our planet is radical. And my friends, we won't let that happen. Fellow Americans, in the last 3.5 years, working together, we have accomplished more than any government since FDR. But much, much more remains to be done. We must summon the courage to stand up to wealth and power and deliver justice for people at home and abroad. Abroad, we must end this horrific war in Gaza.
All right, it's got a good applause.
Bring home the hostages and demand an immediate ceasefire.
Why can't we do it in this term now?
At home right here, we must take on Big Pharma,
Said it
Big
before.
Oil,
Big oil.
Big Ag, Big Tech, and all the other corporate monopolists whose greed is denying progress for working people.
They're going to big boy. Let's get them the big boy.
On November 5th, let us elect Kamala Harris as our president, and let us go forward to create the nation we know we can become. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders. Ooh, so what do you think? Bernie Sanders talking. Keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. Yesterday it was long, and some people were upset because, and from Bernie's camp, I'm not Bernie's camp, from Biden's camp, because he was supposed to have been doing a primetime speech. He didn't come on till after 11 or sometime close to 11 and did a 49-minute speech. What did you think about that speech yesterday? Do you think it closed his legacy? He said he's still going to be helping Kamala, but what is he going to be doing for the other 5 months? Is he going to be trying to deal with Big Pharma, trying to continue to keep costs low, trying to continue to, before his legacy and his term ends, to help America, all nationalities, end the war? He said he's got a lot to do in a short amount of time. And speaking of a lot to do in a short amount of time, they were complaining yesterday that, boy, they all took too long. We just heard from Bernie Sanders. So next up, some of these people, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. J.D. Pritzker, Ken Chenault, Governor Grisham, Angela Brooks, John Giles, Senator Tammy Duckworth, and then the big ones. Douglas Emhoff, he's the second gentleman. Michelle Obama, First Lady, former, and Barack Obama, former president. So they've got to push all of these in real soon. Will they be able to do that? So while we're waiting, what do you think of the people talking so far? Bernie Sanders, okay? Some people love him. Some people, think he's okay. Chuck Schumer. So the story with Chuck Schumer was, again, he was about to speak. And it was him, Kamala, and two other people behind him. So Kamala and these two other people were behind him as he's going up to the mic. And as he was going up to the mic, she said something. He looked at her, put his hand up and said, shh. Like you tell your kid when you're talking to somebody. She stood back. Then he got up on the mic and talked. So you wonder, did that tick her off? But I was like, wow, he put the burn on her. Woo. I thought I thought it was pretty funny. And now he's up there, you know, endorsing her. Where maybe a month ago, maybe he was one of the ones that said, hey, you know what, Kamala? Or thought maybe we ought to just take her off the ticket. But he also was one of the ones that probably Biden was kind of ticked off at. So you're going to be seeing shades of Obama, some of the people that he was with are back. And they're trying to do this feel as far as, okay, Kamala's the next reincarnation of Barack Obama. So right now, if you have any questions or comments, you can email me, parkerman2011 at gmail.com, parkerman2011 at gmail.com. And this is Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, but I don't want to go to that. Okay? Don't want to go to that. I want to go to something that I think, people right now are kind of forgetting about, that there are protesters taking place right while we watch this. So let me see if I can pull this up. But I don't feel so bad now because it seems like everybody's been kind of messing up and confused because things have been going so fast that they're like, whoa, man, let me see if I can keep up. And this is regular media. Okay, not just streaming. It's regular media that's been trying to decide, well, who do we go to next? Because we have a lady talking, but then we also have, which I thought was interesting, people not rioting, but protesting. And how much of a protest, how long does it take for a protest? Think about this, to turn into a riot. How long does that take? Is it something that's easy? Do you think before the next 2 days that some of these people who are protesting will become rioters? That's a scary thing, isn't it?
We want to show you some video. This was taken just a few minutes ago. I've not seen it, so I'll watch this live with all of you as you stream with us here. I believe it was a small fire. Michelle, we're trying to get that for you. Here it is. Okay. So here was the fire that was set just a few minutes ago. This is the same group that burned an American flag, and that appears to be a flag. I think Mark suggested that it was, but this was just a few minutes before there was some pushing and some violence and several arrests, as we understand it, at least some people taken into custody. We saw them appear to be handcuffed and taken away, some of them screaming.
So should anybody burn a flag be sent to jail? I don't know if you bring your own flag, you burn it, you won't go. But if it's public property and you burn an American flag, should you go to jail? That's what people are talking about. But this is what's happening outside while you saw what's happening inside.
As Chicago police kind of led them away. The mayor has said this, the governor has said this, the superintendent has said they will let people peacefully protest in this city. They thought that was important during this Democratic National Convention. The superintendent saying earlier, though, once these protesters start to use their hands or push, the officers are trained to take action into their own hands and begin to make sure this remains peaceful. Chuck, you're back with us. This group, this Behind Enemy Lines, is it Mark or Chuck? You guys, we have them both? Okay, we've got Mark.
Yeah,
okay.
Rob,
Mark.
I'm
Rob.
Mark, go ahead. So, Mark, you saw that fire. Did you see them light that? Was that an American flag?
it appears to be an American flag. Riot police are coming. Hold on, I gotta get it.
Yeah, be
just
safe.
slightly. Another line of police officers in full riot gear, pads, face masks, and helmets has arrived and has gotten another line in front. There are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 lines of Chicago police officers cutting off the edge here at Madison and Canal. And looking back, you see there's about 10 to 15 yards, maybe 20 between those officers. And now there are even more police officers coming in to get another line started.
And that looks like,
So
Mark, you're
the
back.
group
Are
is-
you back in front of the Israeli consulate now? Is that the Accenture building? It looks like you're back over there now.
Yes, we are. So we were never really that far away from it,
Okay.
Rob. We were just slightly to the west, on the west side of the building. The building was in our sight the entire time. It just was not where most of the action was happening.
Mark, let me stop you real
especially when
quick
the-
here. On Chuck Gowdy's
Yeah.
camera there on the bottom left, that is the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, Larry Snelling, who has been out with the men and the women protecting this great city. And he said he would continue to be shoulder to shoulder with them. And there he is giving direction. And this is the superintendent, Chuck.
Well, it certainly is. He's 10 feet away. Superintendent Larry Snelling is clearly very much in command here. And the order to disperse has been given. As I just mentioned, it's really the first line that the authorities give before they take more aggressive action. There are I don't know how many officers, but there are hundreds and hundreds of officers, probably outnumbering the protesters at this point by at least 8 to 1. But, you know, in a case like this, it doesn't matter. If somebody doesn't want to be arrested, they're going to do their best to not be arrested. And that is what this standoff is about at this point. The authorities still have this group boxed in a 1-block area right in front of the building where the Israeli consulate is. The police appear disinterested in allowing them to continue this. They gave them a long leash and allowed them to have probably a half hour, 45 minutes of speech making on the sidewalk, and then they moved to the street, and that's when the police decided that enough was enough. They had essentially shut down the street. And it should be noted, I'm reminded that this is a group that does not have a permit to do this.
So they don't even have a permit to protest. And that's interesting. But some people say you need a permit to protest, a license to protest. That's how society is. But now they look at it like when people don't have permits to protest, that they're really protesting and are willing to do whatever it takes to make their statement.
And that's really what the entree is for the police to move in and shut this down. If they had a permit, the police would be taking a different tact here, as we saw in the permits yesterday when people were essentially parading and marching on the street. At this point, though, this group does not have a permit. They're not going to be allowed to stay here. And if it means that they're going to be taking people into custody, as appears to be the case now, then that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a really important point to make, Chuck. There have been permits issued, and the city of Chicago and the DNC even provided a stage and a park not far from the United Center, much closer than where you are tonight, with some of these protest organizations, and said, this is your space. This group has moved away from the United Center. This is on Madison, as is the United Center, but this is probably about 12 blocks or so away from the United Center. So these protesters are nowhere close to where the Democratic National Convention is going tonight. And
so that's interesting. So 12 blocks, that could be a couple miles, maybe 5-10 minutes away driving wise. But, you know, maybe the media would make you think they're right outside the convention. They're about 12 blocks away.
And that's why Chuck said they don't have a permit to be here. The Chicago police look to be letting them stay on a street now shut down, Chuck. And it looks like these are all Palestinian supporters and Israeli supporters. Have you seen any clashes between these groups? Go ahead.
No, they're actually, it's interesting. This is the largest number of Israeli supporters with the Israeli flag that I've seen tonight. I mean, it's not a lot, but they're right here. And what's dividing them between the Palestinians is this line of Chicago police. And on the other side, they are on the other side of these police officers is the main group of the Palestinians, and they were the ones who called this protest in the first place. As you say, important to note that they don't have a permit for this, don't have permission, and shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I can see behind you some of the Israeli flags that you mentioned. And then right in front of the Accenture Tower, where the Israeli consulate is, that's your bottom left screen. You see the protesters there have gathered. A lot of them wearing masks, including some gas masks. Chuck, I saw that earlier. You can see most of these are just face coverings. But as far as you know, Chicago police have not distributed any sort of pepper spray or anything that would require people putting on masks, right?
I have not seen anything dispersed, and there's been no police call for a gas team to come in an attempt to clear the streets. It doesn't seem like it would be necessary at this point. They have more than enough manpower here to take down and arrest everybody who is here illegally protesting, as they say, in the middle of the street.
And I think he said that there's more police than there are protesters. But that's interesting because some of the protesters have masks, maybe for the tear gas. So I think somebody's waiting on one person to get ticked off, and then that's when it turns into a riot.
And so I think that probably is how this is going to end up. They're going to give another warning, probably two, to let people leave on their own. And then at that point, they will move in and they will make arrests.
Okay, so that's new, or at least I didn't know that. Apologies, Chuck. That would be how this would progress. The police will give them numerous warnings, and then they would likely go in and start to perhaps make some arrests.
We noticed that during NATO initially, a decade ago, and then in the protests that followed George Floyd's murder in Chicago. I remember standing at North Avenue in Wells, and the authorities gave, it seemed like 7 or 8 warnings to the crowd that if they didn't disperse, if they didn't leave the public street, that they were going to be arrested. And the people sat down in the middle of the street, and the police then moved in and made the arrests.
So that part is interesting because of other situations. The George Floyd instance, for example, they kind of said, okay, this is how it's going to go. We're going to give them this. They're going to either do this or not. We'll do the tear gas, and it goes from there.
Mark Rivera, our reporter, is also out there. If you're just joining us, we have 2 cameras on the same location. They're about a block apart, if that much. And on the bottom left there is right in front of the Israeli consulate building. This is a large building down in the Loop in the city of Chicago. The consulate is closed, but these protesters from behind enemy lines had said they were going to go and essentially cause trouble. And some of them have done that tonight. Top right of your screen, that's the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, Larry Snelling, out making sure that the police are in place to do what they're there to do tonight. Mark, you're with us again. Have you seen any clashes amongst different groups of protests from where you are?
We have not seen any clashes amongst different groups of protesters at all. Right now, they are clearly separated by, several hundred Chicago police. They're separated by a wall of blue at this point. And to give you a sense of how close Chuck and I are at this juncture, is I can see right now in my line of sight Superintendent Larry Snelling.
Okay, so you're right there.
We're less than, we are right there. We're just a little bit west of Chuck. Chuck is right at Canal, and we're just west, closer to Ogilvy Transportation Center, and basically the line of asphalt that's separating hundreds of Chicago police officers and these several hundred protesters who are in the middle of the street at this point.
Mark, let me ask you this, Mark. You've been down there for us for a couple hours now. We were watching here in the newsroom before we decided to break in with this breaking news. Have you noticed, because from here, and we're not there with you, it looks like a lot more police officers, row after row, are now there, ready to keep the peace. Have you seen a significant increase in the presence of law enforcement?
absolutely, there has been a massive increase in law enforcement. All the way to the west, I don't know if you can see here, George, if you can show them even behind, you see how many police officers are right there on Clinton. You see that right? That's behind the protesters. The protesters are facing east right now on Madison, so that's west on Clinton right there, and you see hundreds of Chicago police officers to the west. You see hundreds more behind us to the east, behind us here, all in riot gear now. That was not the case just an hour and a half ago.
So hundreds of police, and a lot of them are in riot gear. Wow. You're watching Keeping It Honest. Democratic Convention, day 2. Wow. So they're doing a peaceful protest right now, it seems, which is good. We have coming up almost on the schedule. As I look on the screen, we have Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. She's talking now. So we're going to go into her talking, I think. And then after that, we have Douglas Emhoff. He's the second gentleman. He's Kamala's husband. Michelle Obama, former First Lady. Barack Obama, former president. Telephone numbers 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. And we're about to pick up that feed in a second. Parkerman2011 at gmail.com. Parkerman2011 at gmail.com. And we have done yesterday. We did over 5.5 hours. So Senator Tammy Duckworth, senator since 2017. She's a former House representative, former Veterans Affairs Assistant Secretary, and she's an Iraq veteran. Wow, Purple Heart recipient. So how does she feel, I wonder, about Vice President candidate? How does she feel about him, about Tim, who kind of didn't really tell the truth about his military record, where she has a Purple Heart? But let's listen to what she has to say.
Because if they win, Republicans will not stop at banning abortion. They will come for IVF next. They'll prosecute doctors. They will shame and spy on women. And if you think that's far-fetched, just look up what happened in Alabama last year. So let me say to every would-be parent, I see you. I'm with you. And together, in November, we'll send a message to old Cadet Bone Spurs. Stay out of our doctors' offices, and when you're at it, out of the Oval Office too.
So stay out of the doctor's office and the Oval.
My struggle with infertility was more painful than any wound I earned on the battlefield. So how dare a convicted felon like Donald Trump treat women seeking health care like they're the ones breaking the law? How dare J.D. Vance criticize childless women on cable news, then vote against legislation that would have actually helped Americans to start families? How dare the GOP endanger the dreams of countless veterans whose combat wounds prevent them from having kids without IVF, punishing our heroes for their willingness to serve? It's simple. Every American deserves the right to be called mommy or daddy without being treated like a criminal.
Mm.
Kamala Harris believes that. So let's make some history and elect her in November. God bless America.
Wow. So what do you think? Tammy Duckworth. And she's a senator of Illinois. Coming up next is Douglas Emhoff, the second gentleman, also the husband of Kamala Harris. Michelle Obama after that, and Barack Obama last but not least. By the time that he speaks, though, it's going to be after 11 o'clock. Man. Hope he doesn't get upset. You're watching Keeping It Honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker. So anyway, so they were upset about Joe Biden because these are supposed to be prime time. I know for the Republicans, they came on literally about 10 o'clock, certain people's time. They did their speeches. The big headhunters did their speeches. And then the main speaker came on and ended about 11 or not too long after that. Yesterday, they were late. And Biden had a 45-minute speech. So you wonder, Michelle Obama, well, you got the husband first of Kamala. Maybe he'll do 20 minutes, then Michelle will do 20 minutes, then Obama do 20, 30 minutes. A lot of people are saying which of these speeches are more important. Some people have said not Obama's because we know what he's going to do, but it's great to see. And maybe not Michelle because we know what she can do. But it's the husband of Kamala. We haven't heard him talk literally anywhere. And because you're getting this personal story from the husband, some people say that's going to be really interesting. So we also talked about the demonstrations that are taking place outside, 12 blocks from where they're talking now, because I don't know how much mainstream is talking. But then also, we've had a spattering of things. We've been going in and out. Kamala's out of town at a rally. She's breaking into the convention in the middle of a speaker, which was kind of rude. They could have waited and said, okay, let's do this live thing. If she's going to be speaking tomorrow, then maybe try to check to see who's at the rally. And when they finish, come in. Okay? Because if people are taking their time to support you, you shouldn't be kind of double dipping, as people say. So, rating right now, soon, to have the husband, Doug, and hear what he's going to say. So while they're talking about him right now, let's see if we can listen in.
Our family here. When you look at this moment overall, as we talk about defining who these folks are, who these candidates and their spouses are, the state of the race is very different than it was just a month ago. Kamala Harris is doing better in polling than President Biden did against former President Trump. What happens over the next 70 days, we'll see.
And this will get back to the idea of blended families, and for America to see blended families, perhaps through a new set of eyes.
Absolutely. A significant theme, particularly with J.D. Vance saying that Democrats aren't focused enough on family. Second gentleman, Doug Emhoff.
And the husband of Kamala Harris is about to speak.
I guess he didn't want me to give this speech. He just... Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello. Thank you. Hello to my big, beautiful, blended family up there. I love you so much. Aren't you proud of Cole? Wow.
a special shout out to my mother. I see you.
His mother.
My mother is the only person in the whole world who thinks Kamala is the lucky one for marrying me. And to Kamala, who, well, we just saw where she is. She's out on the trail listening to and talking with voters. Honey, I can't wait for you to come back to Chicago because we're having a great time here. I love you so much. I'm so proud of how you're stepping up for all of us. But that's who she is. Wherever she's needed, however she's needed, Kamala rises to the occasion. And she did it for me and our family. And now that the country needs her, she's showing you what we already know. She's ready to lead. She brings both joy and toughness to this task, and she will be a great president we will all be proud of. Now, I'm the son of two Brooklynites, Mike and Barb. They've been together almost 70 years. My dad worked in the shoe business in Manhattan, and he moved our family out to New Jersey. Where's New Jersey? I see you out there. When I was a little kid. And in a lot of ways, I had a typical Jersey suburban childhood. I biked around the neighborhood. I took the bus to Hebrew school. And I rode to Little League practice in the way back of my coach's wood-paneled station wagon. And if we did well, we got to have a Slurpee after. In my neighborhood, everyone left their garage door open. Wherever you ended up at dinner time, that's the family that fed you.
That's cool.
Everyone took care of everyone else. And the guys I grew up with are still my best friends.
That's
The
great too.
group chat is active every day, and it's probably blowing up right now, guys. When my dad had to get a new job, we moved across the country to LA. Money was tight. Hey, California. Money was tight, so I worked at McDonald's in high school for some extra cash. Not only was I Employee of the Month, but I still have the frame picture, which you just saw, and there was a ring, golden arches and all. And then I waited tables, parked cars. I was working full-time so I could afford to go to college part-time. And thanks to partial scholarships, student loans, and a little help from my dad, I got myself through law school.
Wow.
I got my first job as a lawyer,
Okay.
which is also where I met the guys in my fantasy football league. And a lot has changed in our lives since the early 90s, but my team name is still Nirvana. Yes, after the band. I worked hard, and I love being a lawyer. And by the way, I still get to be part of the profession by teaching students at Georgetown Law School. I got married, became a dad to Cole and Ella. Unfortunately, I went through a divorce, but eventually started worrying about how I would make it all work. And that's when something unexpected happened.
Pamela Wade.
In 2013, I walked into a contentious client meeting. We worked through the issue, and by the end of the meeting, the now happy client offered to set me up on a blind date.
Yeah.
Which is how I ended up with Kamala Harris's phone number. Now, for generations, people have debated when to call the person you're being set up with. And never in history has anyone suggested 8:30 a.m. And yet, that's when I dialed. I got Kamala's voicemail, and I just started rambling. Hey, it's Doug.
Mhm.
I'm on my way to an early meeting. Again, it's Doug. I remember I was trying to grab the words out of the air and just put them back in my mouth. And for what seemed like far too many minutes, I hung up. By the way, Kamala saved that voicemail.
Mhm.
And she makes me listen to it on every anniversary.
Okay.
But that message wasn't the only unusual thing about that day. Now, Kamala, who normally would have been working hard at her office, just happened to be waiting at her apartment for a contractor to do some work on her kitchen. I was eating at my desk, which was not a regular occurrence for a busy lawyer like me who appreciated a good business lunch. But that's when she called me back. And we talked for an hour and we laughed. Well, you know that laugh.
Yeah.
I love that laugh.
There you go. Some people call it cackling.
And
He calls it
maybe
love.
that counted as our first date.
Mm.
Or maybe it was that Saturday night when I picked her up and told her, buckle up, I'm a really bad driver. Because you can't hide anything from Kamala Harris, so you might as well own it.
Mm.
And as I got to know her better and just fell in love fast, I learned what drives Kamala. And it's what you've seen over these past 4 years, and especially these past 4 weeks. She finds joy in pursuing justice. She stands up to bullies just like my parents taught me to. And she likes to see people do well, but hates when they're treated unfairly. People are doing. Her empathy is her strength.
Mm. He's telling a great story.
Over the past decade, Kamala has connected me more deeply to my faith, even though it's not the same as hers. She comes to synagogue with me for high holiday services, and I go to church with her for Easter. I get to enjoy her mom's chili relleno recipe every Christmas, and she makes a mean brisket for Passover. It brings me right back to my grandmother's apartment in Brooklyn, you know, the one with the plastic-covered couches.
Been there, had that.
Kamala has fought against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate her whole career. She's the one who encouraged me as second gentleman to take up that fight, which is so personal to me. And those of you who belong to blended families know that they can be a little complicated. But as soon as our kids started calling her Mamala, I knew we'd be okay. Ella calls us a three-headed parenting machine. Kamala and Kirsten, thank you both. Thank you both. For always putting your family and the kids first. Now, Cole and Ella's friends knew that when they come over for Sunday dinner with Mamala, it was going to be real talk. In between taking cooking instructions, they'd have to answer questions about what problem they wanted to solve in the world. They learned that you've always got to be prepared because Kamala is going to prosecute the case. And in the same breath that Cole and Greenlee told us that they were engaged, they asked Kamala to officiate their wedding.
Wow.
And in the same way that she always steps up when it matters, Kamala put so much time into those remarks, and she bound them in a book that matched her dark red dress, and then turned that into a gift for the happy couple.
Mm.
A few days ago, during this incredible time we're going through, there was a brief window when Kamala was back at home. And I saw her sitting on her favorite chair, and in the middle of a wild month, I just hoped that she was having a quiet moment to herself. But then I realized she was on the phone. And of course, my mind went to all the potential crises that the vice president could be dealing with. Was it domestic? Was it foreign? Was it campaign?
I could see she was focused, and all I knew was that it must be something important. And it turns out it was. Ella had called her. That's Kamala. That's Kamala.
I think you wanted
Those
more
kids
on
are
that.
her priorities, and that scene was a perfect map of her heart. She's always been there for our children, and I know she'll always be there for yours too.
All of our children.
Kamala is a joyful warrior. It's doing for her country what she has always done for the people that she loves. Her passion will benefit all of us when she's our president. And here's the thing about joyful warriors. They're still warriors. And Kamala is as tough as it comes. Just ask the criminals, the global gangsters, and the witnesses before the Senate Judiciary Committee. She never runs from a fight.
Go back
And
up
she
here.
knows the best way to deal with a coward is to take him head on. Because we all know cowards are weak, and Kamala Harris can smell weakness. She doesn't tolerate any BS. You've all seen that look, and you know that look I'm talking about. That look is not just a meme. It reflects her true belief in honest and direct leadership. And it's also why she will not be distracted by nonsense. Kamala knows that in order to win, we cannot lose focus. America, in this election, you have to decide who to trust with your family's future. I trusted Kamala with our family's future. It was the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
This Thursday will be our 10th wedding anniversary.
In the day
Which
that she's speaking.
I know it means I'm about to hear that embarrassing voicemail again.
Mhm.
However, that's not all I'll be hearing. That same night,
Yes.
I'll be hearing my wife, Kamala Harris, accept your nomination for President of the United States. And with your help, she will lead with joy and toughness, with that laugh and that look, with compassion and conviction. She'll lead from the belief that wherever we come from, whatever we look like, we're strongest when we fight for what we believe in, not just against what we fear. Kamala Harris was exactly the right person for me at an important moment in my life. And at this moment in our nation's history, she is exactly the right president. Thank you so much.
Oh, that was good. What the thought,
I
huh?
can't speak to how that may be going over outside, but inside this arena tonight, Doug
Is that
Emhoff
good?
may be having a moment.
That was good.
Absolutely, Lester. And what's significant about it is this
Wow.
week is about filling in the biography of Kamala Harris. She served as vice
What did
president
you
for
get out
nearly
of
4
that,
years, but a
people?
lot of people still don't know who she is. Hearing about that voicemail, hearing about what she means to their family.
Conventions are all.
What did you get out of that? Keeping it simple, keeping it real, keeping it honest. The husband, the spouse of Kamala Harris, telling those stories about the laugh. Let's see. Coming up now, oh, we're going quick. Michelle Obama. We have to hear this. Waiting for the music to play out. Michelle Obama. Back to back. Yes, we can. We didn't even get a chance to take a break from Doug.
We got a big night ahead. Thank you all so much.
You ain't kidding.
Thank you so much.
Everybody thought she was going to run for president. Not everybody, but a lot of people. Could this be her address for the future? President Obama. Keeping it honest, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander.
Something
wonderfully magical is in the air, isn't it?
Is it
You know,
Obama-ish?
we're feeling it here in this arena, but it's spreading all across this country we love. A familiar feeling that's been buried too deep for far too long. You know what I'm talking about.
What?
It's the contagious power of hope.
Obama-ish. Keep hope alive.
The anticipation, the energy, the exhilaration of once again being on the cusp of a brighter day. The chance to vanquish the demons of fear, division, and hate that have consumed us and continue pursuing the unfinished promise of this great nation, the dream that our parents and grandparents fought and died and sacrificed for. America, hope is making a comeback.
I like that. Hope is making a comeback. Use that as a slogan. Hope is making a comeback. We hope.
But to be honest, I am realizing that until recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings, that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future. And for me, that mourning has also been mixed with my own personal grief. The last time I was here in my hometown was to memorialize my mother,
Wow.
the woman who showed me the meaning of hard work and humility and decency, the woman who set my moral compass high and showed me the power of my own voice. Folks,
I didn't know she had passed. Did you?
I still feel her loss so profoundly. I wasn't even sure if I'd be steady enough to stand before you tonight, but my heart compelled me to be here because of the sense of duty that I feel to honor her memory and to remind us all not to squander the sacrifices our elders made to give us a better future.
Your mom lived in the White House.
You see, my mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning. So my mother volunteered at the local school. She always looked out for the other kids on the block. She was glad to do the thankless, unglamorous work that for generations has strengthened the fabric of this nation. The belief that if you do unto others, if you love thy neighbor, if you work and scrape and sacrifice, it will pay off. If not for you, then maybe for your children or your grandchildren.
Amen.
You see, those values have been passed on through family farms and factory towns, through tree-lined streets and crowded tenements, through prayer groups and National Guard units and social studies classrooms. Those were the values my mother poured into me until her very last breath. Kamala Harris and I built our lives on those same foundational values. Even though our mothers grew up an ocean apart, they shared the same belief in the promise of this country. That's why her mother moved here from India at 19 It's why she taught Kamala about justice, about the obligation to lift others up, about our responsibility to give more than we take. She'd often tell her daughter, don't sit around and complain about things, do something.
Mm.
So,
Amen.
with that voice in her head, Kamala went out and she worked hard in school, graduating from an HBCU, earning her law degree at a state school. And then she went on to work for the people, fighting to hold lawbreakers accountable, strengthening the rule of law, fighting to get folks better wages, cheaper prescription drugs, a good education, decent health care, child care, elder care. From a middle-class household, Kamala worked her way up to become Vice President of the United States of America.
You gotta clap for that, though. And ran for president. Come on, let's give it up.
Kamala Harris
Whether you like it or not.
is more than ready for this moment. She is one of the most qualified people ever to seek the office of the presidency.
We have to look at it.
She is one of the most dignified. A tribute to her mother, to my mother, and to your mother too.
Let's put all those
The
mothers together.
embodiment of the stories we tell ourselves about this country. Her story is your story. It's my story. It's the story of the vast majority of Americans trying to build a better life. Look, Kamala knows, like we do, that regardless of where you come from, what you look like, who you love, how you worship, or what's in your bank account, we all deserve the opportunity to build a decent life. All of our contributions deserve to be accepted and valued. Because no one has a monopoly on what it means to be an American. No one.
No one has a monopoly of what it means to be an American.
Kamala has shown her allegiance to this nation, not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service and always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others. She understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth.
Think on that. Affirmative action of generational wealth. Is that not a minority thing?
If we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance.
Amen.
If things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No.
What is she talking
We
about?
don't get to change the rules so we always win. If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top.
All right, Trump. Innuendo. You go, girl.
Our heads down. We get to work. In America, we do something. And throughout her entire life, that's what we've seen from Kamala Harris. The steel of her spine, the steadiness of her upbringing, the honesty of her example, and yes, the joy of her laughter and her light.
She's laughing, people, about her laugh.
It couldn't be more obvious. Of the two major candidates in this race, only Kamala Harris truly understands the unseen labor and unwavering commitment that has always made America great.
You haven't mentioned Trump's name, which has been good.
Now, unfortunately, we know what comes next. We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this.
Amen. President and former First Lady.
For years, Donald Trump did everything in his
Oh.
power to try to make people fear us.
Now it's in person.
See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black.
Amen. What happens in our world, people do look down on you. If you're black, they think you're uneducated. Some do. But then some don't. And we applaud y'all. Because that's how it should be.
I want to know who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs.
Okay. That's viral. Keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker.
It's his same old con. His same old con.
She's not a fan.
Doubling down on ugly, misogynistic, racist lies as a substitute for real ideas and solutions that will actually make people's lives better. Look, because cutting our health care, taking away our freedom to control our bodies, the freedom to become a mother through IVF like I did, those things are not going to improve the health outcomes of our wives, mothers, and daughters. Shutting down the Department of Education, banning our
2025,
books,
Project
none of that will prepare our
2025.
kids for the future. Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love. Look, that doesn't make anybody's life better.
Is she running?
Instead, it only makes us small. And let me tell you this, going small is never the answer. Going small is the opposite of what we teach our kids. Going small is petty, it's unhealthy, and quite frankly, it's unpresidential.
I like the subtle messages she's putting out there.
Why would any of us accept this from anyone seeking our highest office? Why would we normalize that type of backward leadership? Doing so only demeans and cheapens our politics. It only serves to further discourage good, big-hearted people from wanting to get involved at all. America, our parents taught us better than that, and we deserve so much better than that.
Amen.
That's why we must do everything in our power to elect two of those good, big-hearted people. There is no other choice than Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. No other choice.
What about Michelle Obama? 4 years from now or right now, depending on the applause?
But as we embrace this renewed sense of hope, let us not forget the despair we have felt. Let us not forget what we are up against. Yes, Kamala and Tim are doing great now. We're loving it. They're packing arenas across the country. Folks are energized. We are feeling good. But remember, there are still so many people who are desperate for a different outcome, who are ready to question and criticize every move Kamala makes, who are eager to spread those lies, who don't want to vote for a woman, who will continue to prioritize building their wealth over ensuring that everyone has enough. So no matter how good we feel tonight or tomorrow or the next day, this is going to be an uphill battle. So folks, we cannot be our own worst enemies. No. See, because the minute something goes wrong, the minute a lie takes hold, folks, we cannot start wringing our hands. We cannot get a Goldilocks complex about whether everything is just right.
Are we okay?
And we cannot indulge our our anxieties about whether this country will elect someone like Kamala instead of doing everything we can to get someone like Kamala elected.
Gotta keep pushing people. Whatever you want.
Kamala and Tim, they have lived amazing lives. And I am confident that they will lead with compassion, inclusion, and grace. But they are still only human. They are not perfect. And like all of us, they will make mistakes. But luckily, y'all, this is not just on them. No, this is up to us, all of us, to be the solution that we seek. It's up to all of us to be the antidote to the darkness and division. Look, I don't care how you identify politically, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, or none of the above. This is our time to stand up for what we know in our hearts is right. To stand up, not just for our basic freedoms, but for decency and humanity, for basic respect, dignity, and empathy, for the values at the very foundation of this democracy. It's up to us to remember what Kamala's mother told her. Don't just sit around and complain, do something. So if they lie about her, and they will, we've got to do something. If we see a bad poll, and we will, we got to put down that phone and do something. If we start feeling tired, if we start feeling that dread creeping back in, we got to pick ourselves up, throw water on our face, and what? We only have 2.5 months, y'all, to get this done. Only 11 weeks to make sure every single person we know is registered and has a voting plan. So we cannot afford for anyone America to sit on their hands and wait to be called. Don't complain if no one from the campaign has specifically reached out to you to ask you for your support. There is simply no time for that kind of foolishness.
You don't have time. That's
You know what you need to do.
If they don't reach you, you reach them at the bottom.
Consider this to be your official ask.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama is asking you, no, I'm telling y'all to do something.
All right.
Because
Do something. You got the words. All right.
you all, this election is going to be close. In some states, just a handful, listen to me, a handful of votes in every precinct could decide the winner. So we need to vote in numbers that erase any doubt. We need to overwhelm any effort to suppress us. Our fate is in our hands. In 77 days, we have the power to turn our country away from the fear, division, and smallness of the past. We have the power to marry our hope with our action. We have the power to pay forward the love, sweat, and sacrifice of our mothers and fathers and all those who came before us. We did it before, y'all, and we sure can do it again. Let us work like our lives depend on it. And let us keep moving our country forward and go higher. Yes, always higher than we've ever gone before as we elect the next president and vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Thank you all. God bless.
Wow. What do you think of that? Yes, we can. Wait a minute.
Before I go,
Maybe her husband?
I have one more job tonight.
Yep. You can't break it. Barack Obama. He's got a lot to do after this.
You all, thank you for all the love, but it is now my honor to introduce somebody who knows a whole lot about hope. Someone who has spent his life strengthening our democracy. And let me tell you, as someone who lives with him, he wakes up every day, and thinks about what's best for this country. Please welcome America's 44th president and the love of my life, Barack Obama.
So here we go. Here's the love. Look at it.
Lady Michelle Obama with a fiery, heartfelt, and personal call to action as she greets her husband, former President Barack Obama.
And he is going to have to give one of the greatest speeches. The last time he spoke was 2000. He's like, give it up to her. Give it up to her. There we go. Come on. Barack Obama, 16 years ago, you spoke.
It was a full-throated endorsement of Kamala Harris and a full-throated indictment of Donald Trump.
She has blown the doors off this house and certainly raised the bar for what is to come from her husband.
He wasn't able to help Hillary Clinton. Let's see if he can help Kamala Harris. Barack Obama. What about him being president? You could do it. This is charisma right here. And his wife is charisma. Everybody saying thank you. Are they saying it's more than for Joe? Look at him. It just makes you happy. Where you got to start.
It is good to be home, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling fired up.
You can't help but be happy seeing him. Charisma.
I am feeling ready to go. Even if I am the only person stupid enough to speak after Michelle Obama.
There you go.
I am feeling hopeful because this convention has always been pretty good to kids with funny names who believe in a country where anything is possible.
Kamala Obama.
Because we have a chance to elect someone who has spent her entire life trying to give people the same chances America gave her. Someone who sees you and hears you and will get up every single day and fight for you. The next president of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Wow. He's not even president yet. But you feel it.
It's been 16 years since I had the honor of accepting this party's nomination for president.
16 years.
And I know that's hard to believe because I have not aged a bit. But it's true. And looking back, I can say without question that my first big decision as your nominee turned out to be one of my best. And that was asking Joe Biden to serve by my side as vice president.
There you go. Love Joe. 8 years since Obama's been in office. He's like me.
Other than some common Irish blood, Joe and I come from different backgrounds, but we became brothers. And as we worked together for 8 sometimes pretty tough years. What I came to admire most about Joe wasn't just his smarts, his experience. It was his empathy and his decency and his hard-earned resilience, his unshakable belief that everyone in this country deserves a fair shot.
Nice tribute to Joe.
And over the last 4 years, those are the values America has needed most. At a time when millions of our fellow citizens were sick and dying, we needed a leader with the character to put politics aside and do what was right. At a time when our economy was reeling, we needed a leader with the determination to drive what would become the world's strongest recovery. 15 million jobs, higher wages, lower healthcare costs. At a time when the other party had turned into a cult of personality, we needed a leader who was steady and brought people together and was selfless enough to do the rarest thing there is in politics, putting his own ambition aside for the sake of the country.
When Joe dropped out, what he's talking about.
History will remember Joe Biden as an outstanding president who defended democracy at a moment of great danger. And I am proud to call him my president, but I am even prouder to call him my friend.
A lot of people wonder about that, and it's straight that's true, Obama, president. But you and Joe are still close. Just keeping it honest.
The torch has been passed. Now it is up to all of us to fight for the America we believe in. And make no mistake, it will be a fight. For all the incredible energy we've been able to generate over the last few weeks, for all the rallies and the memes, this will still be a tight race in a closely divided country.
That's true.
A country where too many Americans are still struggling. Where a lot of Americans don't believe government can help. And as we gather here tonight, the people who will decide this election are asking a very simple question. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together? One thing is for certain.
What?
Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire.
Here we go.
Who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala.
That may be true.
There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes.
He's keeping it honest. Trump doesn't like Obama either. And the camera goes out and pans at the audience.
The other day I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day. Now, from a neighbor, that's exhausting. From a president, it's just dangerous. The truth is, Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than a means to his ends. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his rich friends. He killed a bipartisan immigration deal written in part by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress that would have helped secure our southern border, because he thought trying to actually solve the problem would hurt his campaign. He doesn't. Do not boo.
Vote. Do not boo. Vote.
He doesn't seem to care if more women lose their reproductive freedom, since it won't affect his life. And most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between the real Americans, who of course support him, and the outsiders who don't. And he wants you to think that you'll be richer and safer if you will just give him the power to put those other people back in their place. It is one of the oldest tricks in politics, from a guy whose act has, let's face it, gotten pretty stale. We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
All right. Donald Trump, the sequel.
America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris.
Oh. Only time will tell. Election day.
And Kamala Harris is ready for the job. This is a person who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and a champion. As you heard from Michelle, Kamala was not born into privilege. She had to work for what she's got. And she actually cares about what other people are going through. She's not the neighbor running the leaf blower. She's the neighbor rushing over to help when you need a hand. As a prosecutor, Kamala stood up for children who had been victims of sexual abuse. As an attorney general of the most populous state in the country, she fought big banks and for-profit colleges, securing billions of dollars for the people they had scammed. After the home mortgage crisis, she pushed me and my administration hard to make sure homeowners got a fair settlement. Didn't matter that I was a Democrat. Didn't matter that she had knocked on doors for my campaign in Iowa. She was going to fight to get as much relief as possible for the families who deserved it. As vice president, she helped take on the drug companies to cap the cost of insulin, lower the cost of health care, give families with kids a tax cut. And she is running for president with real plans to lower costs even more and protect Medicare and Medicaid, and sign a law to guarantee every woman's right to make her own health care decisions.
Gonna get that women's vote. Definitely.
In other words, Kamala Harris won't be focused on her problems. She'll be focused on yours. As president, she won't just cater to her own supporters and punish those who refuse to kiss the ring or bend the knee. She'll work on behalf of every American. That's who Kamala is. And in the White House, she will have an outstanding partner in Governor Tim Walz.
Dedication,
Let me
partnership.
tell you something. Let me tell you something. I love this guy.
Mhm.
Tim is the kind of person who should be in politics. Born in a small town, served his country, taught kids, coached football, took care of his neighbors. He knows who he is, and he knows what's important. You can tell those flannel shirts he wears don't come from some political consultant. They come from his closet, and they have been through some stuff. They have been through some stuff. That's right. Together, Kamala and Tim have kept faith with America's central story. A story that says we are all created equal. All of us endowed with certain inalienable rights, that everyone deserves a chance, that even when we don't agree with each other, we can find a way to live with each other.
Mhm. That's how it should be.
That's Kamala's vision. That's Tim's vision. That's the Democratic Party's vision. And our job over the next 11 weeks is to convince as many people as possible to vote for that vision. Now, it won't be easy. The other side knows it's easier to play on people's fears and cynicism, always has been. They will tell you that government is inherently corrupt, that sacrifice and generosity are for suckers. And since the game is rigged, it's okay to take what you want and just look after your own.
Mm.
That's the easy path. We have a different task. Our job is to convince people that democracy can actually deliver.
Democracy can deliver.
And in doing that, we can't just point to what we've already accomplished. We can't just rely on the ideas of the past. We need to chart a new way forward to meet the challenges of today. And Kamala understands this. She knows, for example, that if we want to make it easier for more young people to buy a home, we need to build more units and clear away some of the outdated laws and regulations that made it harder to build homes for working people in this country. That is a priority, and she's put out a bold new plan to do just that.
Let's hope so.
On healthcare, we should all be proud of the enormous progress that we've made through the Affordable Care Act,
Obamacare?
providing millions of people access to affordable coverage, protecting millions more from unscrupulous insurance practices. And I noticed, by the way, that since it's become popular, they don't call it Obamacare no more. But Kamala knows we can't stop there, which is why she'll keep working to limit out-of-pocket costs. Kamala knows that if we want to help people get ahead, we need to put a college degree within reach of more Americans. But she also knows college shouldn't be the only ticket to the middle class.
Mm.
We need to follow the lead of governors like Tim Walz, who said, if you've got the skills and the drive, you shouldn't need a degree to work for state government. And in this new economy, we need a president who actually cares about the millions of people all across this country who wake up every single day to do the essential, often thankless work, to care for our sick, to clean our streets, to deliver our packages. We need a president who will stand up for their right to bargain for better wages and working conditions. And Kamala will be that president.
Or Barack Obama. People feeling it.
Yes, she can.
Yes, she can. Correct that. Here we go. Yes, he said. And so it's done. Organic.
Walt's administration can help us move past some of the tired old debates that keep stifling progress. Because at their core, Kamala and Tim understand that when everybody gets a fair shot, we are all better off. They understand that when every child gets a good education, the whole economy gets stronger. When women are paid the same as men for doing the same job, all families benefit. They understand that we can secure our borders without tearing kids away from their parents, just like we can keep our streets safe while also building trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve and eliminating bias. That will make it better for everybody. Donald Trump and his well-heeled donors, they don't see the world that way. For them, one group's gains is necessarily another group's loss. For them, freedom means that the powerful can do pretty much what they please, whether it's fire workers trying to organize a union or put poison in our rivers or avoid paying taxes like everybody else has to do. Well, we have a broader idea of freedom. We believe in the freedom to provide for your family if you're willing to work hard. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and send your kids to school without worrying if they'll come home. We believe that true freedom gives each of us the right to make decisions about our own life.
We believe
how we worship, what our family looks like, how many kids we have, who we marry. And we believe that freedom requires us to recognize that other people have the freedom to make choices that are different than ours. That's okay. That's the America Kamala Harris and Tim Walz believe in. An America where we, the people, includes everyone.
we the people includes everyone.
Because that's the only way this American experiment works. And despite what our politics might suggest, I think most Americans understand that. Democracy isn't just a bunch of abstract principles and dusty laws in some book somewhere. It's the values we live by. It's the way we treat each other, including those who don't look like us, or pray like us, or see the world exactly like we do. That sense of mutual respect has to be part of our message. Our politics have become so polarized these days that all of us across the political spectrum seem so quick to assume the worst in others, unless they agree with us on every single issue. We start thinking that the only way to win is to scold and shame and out-yell the other side. And after a while, regular folks just tune out, or they don't bother to vote. Now, that approach may work for the politicians who just want attention and thrive on division, but it won't work for us. To make progress on the things we care about, the things that really affect people's lives, we need to remember that we've all got our blind spots and contradictions and prejudices, and that if we want to win over those who aren't yet ready to support our candidates, we need to listen to their concerns and maybe learn something in the process. After all, if a parent or grandparent occasionally says something that makes us cringe, we don't automatically assume they're bad people. We recognize that the world is moving fast, that they need time and maybe a little encouragement to catch up. Our fellow citizens deserve the same grace we hope they'll extend to us. That's how we can build a true democratic majority, one that can get things done. And by the way, that does not just matter to the people in this country. The rest of the world is watching to see if we can actually pull this off.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They're watching.
No society has ever tried to build a democracy as big and as diverse as ours before. One that includes people that over decades have come from every corner of the globe. One where our allegiances and our community are defined not by race or blood, but by a common creed. And that's why when we uphold our values, the world's a little brighter. When we don't, the world's a little dimmer. And dictators and autocrats feel emboldened. And over time, we become less safe. We shouldn't be the world's policemen, and we can't eradicate every cruelty and injustice in the world. But America can be and must be a force for good. Discouraging conflict, fighting disease, promoting human rights, protecting the planet from climate change, defending freedom, brokering peace. That's what Kamala Harris believes, and so do most Americans. I know these ideas can feel pretty naive right now. We live in a time of such confusion and rancor, with a culture that puts a premium on things that don't last. Money, fame, status, likes. We chase the approval of strangers on our phones. We build all manner of walls and fences around ourselves, and then we wonder why we feel so alone. We don't trust each other as much because we don't take the time to know each other. And in that space between us, politicians and algorithms teach us to caricature each other and troll each other and fear each other. But here's the good news, Chicago. All across America.
Let's hear it.
In big cities and small towns.
Bring it home, Obama.
Away from all the noise. The ties that bind us together are still there. We still coach Little League and look out for our elderly neighbors. We still feed the hungry in churches and mosques and synagogues and temples. We share the same pride when our Olympic athletes compete for the gold. Because the vast majority of us do not want to live in a country that's bitter and divided. We want something better. We want to be better. And the joy and the excitement that we're seeing around this campaign tells us we're not alone. You know, I've spent a lot of time thinking about these past few months because, as Michelle mentioned, this summer we lost her mom, Ms. Marion Robinson. And I don't know that anybody has ever loved their mother-in-law any more than I love mine. Mostly it's because she was funny and wise and the least pretentious person I knew. That, and she always defended me with Michelle when I messed up. I'd hide behind her. But I also think one of the reasons Mary and I became so close was she reminded me of my grandmother, the woman who helped raise me as a child. And on the surface, the two of them did not have a lot in common. One was a black woman from right here, south side of Chicago, right down the way. Went to Englewood High School. The other was a little old white lady born in a tiny town called Piru, Kansas. Now, I know there aren't that many people from Piru. And yet they shared a basic outlook on life. They were strong, smart, resourceful women, full of common sense, who, regardless of the barriers they encountered, and women growing up in the 40s and 50s and 60s, they encountered barriers. They still went about their business without fuss or complaint and provided an unshakable foundation of love for their children and their grandchildren. In that sense, they both represented an entire generation of working people who, through war and depression, discrimination and limited opportunity, helped build this country. A lot of them toiled every day at jobs that were often too small for them and didn't pay a lot. They willingly went without just to keep a roof over the family's heads, just to give their children something better. But they knew what was true. They knew what mattered. Things like honesty and integrity, kindness and hard work. They weren't impressed with braggarts or bullies. They didn't think putting other people down lifted you up or made you strong. They didn't spend a lot of time obsessing about what they didn't have. Instead, they appreciated what they did. They found pleasure in simple things. A card game with friends, a good meal, and laughter around the kitchen table. Helping others. And most of all, seeing their children do things and go places that they would have never imagined for themselves.
Like the son runs for president and wins. The son of them.
Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or somewhere in between, we have all had people like that in our lives. People like Kamala's parents, who crossed oceans because they believed in the promise of America. People like Tim's parents, who taught him about the importance of service. Good, hard-working people who weren't famous or powerful, but who managed in countless ways to lead this country just a little bit better than they found it. As much as any policy or program, I believe that's what we yearn for. A return to an America where we work together and look out for each other. A restoration of what Lincoln called, on the eve of Civil War, our bonds of affection. An America that taps what he called the better angels of our nature. That is what this election is about. And I believe that's why if we each do our part over the next 77 days, if we knock on doors, if we make phone calls, if we talk to our friends, if we listen to our neighbors, if we work like we've never worked before, if we hold firm to our convictions, we will elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States, and Tim Walz as the next vice president of the United States. We will elect leaders up and down the ballot who will fight for the hopeful, forward-looking America we all believe in. And together, we too will build a country that is more secure and more just, more equal, and more free. So let's get to work. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
Wow. Let's get to work. God bless the United States. God bless America. Barack Obama, keeping it honest. 2016, he came out, Democratic Party, promoted Hillary Clinton, said, we need her, we don't need Donald. Didn't work 8 years ago. Great to see Obama. Let's listen in to what some of the people have to say.
In many ways, you could argue, Savannah, that what we heard from Barack Obama there was really, at times, while going after Trump, really an appeal to the middle.
These were two different speeches, and yet they were bookends to an argument for a return to American ideal that the Obamas argued has been lost in our recent politics. Michelle Obama started out by saying, hope is making a comeback. Of course, Barack Obama was the candidate so famous for saying hope and change. And he went out there and gave an endorsement of Kamala Harris, an indictment of Donald Trump. But most crucially, I think he was arguing for a hopeful future, one where Americans, though they may feel divided or feel that they can't agree, that they could still live together in peace and harmony. And I think that was, Kristen, what he was trying to do tonight.
These were fascinating speeches in the way that they fit together. Our Monica Alba is reporting that the two of them actually coordinated their speeches, worked on them so that they would feel like bookends. Former President Barack Obama really became the explainer-in-chief. Remember, that's what former President Bill Clinton was for him when he was running for re-election in 2012. He delivered a speech that very much fit into this. Former First Lady Michelle Obama basically unleashed what it seems like she's been wanting to say about former President Donald Trump since 2016. It was a stunning moment in our politics. She took the gloves off. She went directly at Mr. Trump. This is a preview of what we'll see from them on the campaign trail.
She took the gloves off and then delivered a total knockout punch. And then what we saw from Barack Obama was a little bit different, Hallie, in the sense of it was an indictment of Trump, but done with a little more humor and lightness, even making fun of Donald Trump for his weird obsession with crowd size and that kind of thing.
So they were, if you look at these two speeches, almost puzzle pieces that fit together to tell that bigger picture story. And what was so interesting here in listening to them is that it feels like this moment right now cements the difference in strategy going after Donald Trump between President Biden and Vice President Harris. President Biden made the case for years, really, that former President Trump was a threat to democracy, casting him as almost this sort of ominous figure looming over American democracy. In some ways, you could argue making him seem almost larger than life. The Harris-Walz strategy, in many ways, Tim Walz, the architect of this, is to say, wait a second, Donald Trump's not large. They say he's in fact small. He's weird. He's annoying. He's a whiner. He's a loser, trying to take away that power from him as they make the case
But
against him.
let's not forget, a lot of this was directed at Democrats and hand-wringing. We heard it really explicitly from Michelle Obama, and then her husband kind of picked up on that theme.
From both of them, really. There was a message to, we always say, and we talk about this a lot at conventions, there's an audience in the room, and then there's an audience watching at home. Millions of people in prime time, you're delivering a message to both, but they both had a message to Democrats. And from Michelle Obama, it was stop trying to hold these candidates to an impossible ideal of perfection. Stop the, so to speak, bedwetting, which is a phrase that often comes up in Democratic politics. Former President Obama had a message to almost the citizenry of the Democratic Party saying, don't hold supporters of the former President Trump to that standard either. Let's give each other a little bit of grace as citizens here. So it was fascinating to see how the interplay between these.
Well, it's interesting too in this larger sense. Yes, President Biden has been talking about the threat to democracy, but the other side of that was what we heard from the Obamas, which is why democracy is something worth fighting for, what our better angels were, what this restoration is that they're talking about. So we're going to take a break right here. We have a lot more to cover from the Democratic National Convention, and we will talk about what's next for this fired up crowd in Chicago tomorrow night, right after this.
Wow, Democratic National Convention. Woo! What you guys think of it? You're watching. Keep it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. So Barack Obama, 2016, let's go back 8 years. Only 8 years that he's been out of office. Seems like it's been longer. That hope and change, and yes, we can, in those 8 years, changed to the Trump years where we saw so many decisive figures. Country was split to now 3 years into. Think about it, 3 years into the Biden administration, 3.5 years, people, Democrat-wise, are scared again. 2016, Obama was trying to help Hillary Clinton because they knew it was going to be a close race, but they're like, look, we have to get out there and vote. Don't boo on Trump. Vote. Don't boo. Vote. 8 years later, he's still talking about the same thing. Trying to bring back hope and change. Could Obama run today? Could Michelle Obama run today? And Kamala Harris? Who would win? Something to think about. If you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011@gmail.com. parkerman2011@gmail.com. And we're talking about the convention, day 2. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama. Tomorrow it's Bill Clinton. Yesterday it was Hillary Clinton. And AOC was yesterday too. Let me know what you think of the show so far. Day 2 of the Democratic Convention.
Night in Chicago, our special coverage of the second night of the Democratic National Convention rolls on. Tonight's program has come to a close after former President Obama delivered the night's major address, of course, throwing his support behind Vice President Harris. And of course, Michelle Obama lit the place on fire with her speech. Just go to Tom Yamas. He's on the convention floor, so he was in the room where it happened. Tom, how did these speeches go over with this crowd of party faithful?
I mean, the entire crowd here, the entire arena was electrified. They were on their feet the entire time. Towards the end of President Obama's speech, people started to sit down. It was a very long speech. After 2 nights, we've learned 2 things. One, in prime time, they are going after former President Trump. We heard it yesterday with President Biden. We heard it again today with former President Obama. And also, they are not following the schedule. These nights are going very, very long. I do want to ask LaTanya Reeves. She's from
But not really. They're not really in prime time. They're just going.
Minnesota. She was watching the speech. Tell me, why were people so excited about the Obamas, and did they deliver?
They definitely delivered. I've lost my voice because I was crying at the words of Michelle Obama, really speaking to the experience of people of color and the fact that Kamala is a woman going for the highest office. I was so impressed by both of them, and for them to endorse her, the first Black man president to endorse a Black and South Asian woman, is just phenomenal.
Can Democrats maintain this energy and enthusiasm for the next 75 days?
You see this room, we are going to maintain this energy, and she is going to win this race. What's with our wonderful governor, of course, Minnesota, Tim Walz.
LaTanya Reeves, we thank you so much for talking to us. Savannah, I'm going to send it back to you guys up there.
Wow.
All right, Tom, thank you.
And we want to bring back Peter Alexander. He's also on the convention floor getting a sense of how this landed with that crowd. Peter.
And I am Anthony Parker Alexander, no relation, but he's a great reporter too.
Yeah, Lester and Savannah, what struck me, among other things, is how the Obamas sort of lent some of their language and their energy to Kamala Harris, saying hope is making a comeback. You heard from Michelle Obama, do something. The crowd repeated that, something you might hear along the way. And from President Obama tonight, he had a little smile on his face when the crowd picked on Yes, We Can and said, yes, she can.
Yes.
That's something I already am hearing from some campaign officials they think may stick going forward. William is from California. Rate it 1 to 10. How was it?
I thought it was a 10 out of 10 speech. I was so moved by President Obama and all the speakers tonight. It really infused me with hope. Growing up,
We're going to let you head on your way. I just want to make sure we get back to them on the way. The debate tonight from these guys, which Obama did better, Michelle or Barack? Back to you guys.
Whoa.
Yeah, a lot of conversations taking place at this table and many others about what we witnessed tonight. We're going to take a break. When we come back, what to expect tomorrow from the DNC as the new Democratic ticket prepares to address the nation. More from Chicago right after this.
And who had the better debate? Was it Michelle Obama or Barack Obama? Text me. 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. If you do watch some of this on rewatch, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the share button, and make sure you subscribe. Go to my Patreon page. It's kind of like a PBS. You type in patreon.com, then you type in Keeping It Honest, and you will see my page. We have 3 tiers where you can contribute. You just get closer to us, okay, when you do that. We thank you for helping us out. Make sure you subscribe. Let us continue to grow. We're doing all these shows. We're doing a debate, not the debate, the Democratic National Convention. This is day 2. We got 2 more days left. And we also do Midnight at the Oasis. We have been doing that for a couple days because we've been doing this convention. They're going by a schedule kind of, but it's a long schedule. All right. 2 more days of this. How much of an uptick are the Democrats getting because of this? Well, you know, they usually have it for about a week or so. But with the Obamas coming out, really, is this going to take them over the top? Well, they thought that 8 years ago when Obama was trying to push Hillary Clinton, and it didn't work because Trump won. So now Obama's coming back 8 years later, trying to do the same thing. And earlier today, we had a show that featured Obama's 2016 speech, where he was talking about Donald Trump then. Democratic National Convention, we're back here.
Welcome back to the DNC in Chicago. Our special coverage on the second night of the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago. The crowd still energized, not eager to leave based on what we're seeing behind us after the biggest speech of the night from former President Obama. There are still 2 big nights ahead of us with Tim Walz set to speak tomorrow and Vice President Harris's historic acceptance speech on Thursday. When you piece these together, you get a sense of the arc that the party is trying to put across this week.
Well, Monday night was about paying tribute, of course, to the current president, President Biden. We saw Barack Obama do that as well, his former vice president, and wanting to put a grace note there. There obviously was some difficult moments for the Democratic Party when we were sitting here a month ago at the Republican National Convention. There was so much torment within the Democratic Party. You could almost not have fathomed that a month later this would be a Democratic Party that has coalesced behind a candidate that has changed the poll numbers and momentum is on their side. But now, as these speakers were so quick and insistent to point out, so much work to be done, so much can change in this time.
75 days, but you look at that, boy, a month earlier, the Republican convention, Donald Trump had just gotten shot, almost got assassinated. He picked his running mate, had their convention. They did really good, had an uptick. And then after that, Joe Biden said, I'm not going to leave. He left. Kamala was picked as replacement. She picked Ross, went on a rally, and now it's in their convention. And this is going to last about another week. And then you'll get to see really how close the sides are. Some people are saying Kamala's winning. Some people saying Trump's winning. It's going to be a close race.
5 days.
And the timeline is so compressed, despite some of these numbers that Democrats are looking at, not just in key swing states, but also nationally showing Kamala Harris gaining ground along with Tim Walz. There is still a real sense when you talk to Democrats and sources here that they are the underdogs. There's a lot of fight left and not a lot of time to fight it.
That concludes our coverage of the second night of the Democratic National Convention. Thanks for being here.
All right, so they're going to have some more tomorrow. We'll see about that. Meaning, like, we'll see about it tomorrow, pretty much. let's not forget about this, though. You're watching Keeping It Honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, Democratic Convention, Day 2. We had everything smushed in at the last minute. We thought, okay, we're not going to come on as early because they're not doing things till late. They did the roll call. So the roll call, they went through all the states, but they played so much music throughout it that we couldn't play it. And so we didn't play it. So we came on a little bit later. And then when they started doing their show, they just started going through it quick, even though it's still ended later. So tomorrow, stay tuned. You'll get a notification of when we're going to be on. And tomorrow, again, it will be Bill Clinton, and it will be the VP candidate, Tim Walz. Tim Walz will be speaking. And then we'll have the other list of people that are going to be on. But we also want to go to, let me see if I can find this for you real quick. What's happening, and maybe, when people say the real world, well, what's happening in the real world? Well, let's go see if I got this correct. What's happening in the real world? Remember, people were still protesting. So we're going to see the status of the protesters and see what's happening really in the real world. Keeping it honest.
It was much different at about 7 o'clock when this, and even before then, when protesters started showing up, there was no sense of this sort of escalation from the protesters or from the police to respond. So this is a much different scene right now. The speakers you can see are still going right now from this group Behind Enemy Lines.
So it's interesting. We're looking at a stare down. And that's what's been happening outside Chicago. So we're going to see, that was a few moments ago, but we're going to see if it's still currently happening. You're watching Keeping It Honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. And we have had a very interesting night. Some technical difficulties. The one lady from Channel 3 or NBC, her voice seemed a little bit bad. We hope she does better. But she has really been doing like we've been doing. Talking to a lot of people. Wow. I'm trying to see if we have any more live updates on the protesters. So while I'm talking to you, I'm going to type this in. And this is how, real, I guess, streaming or video has been for tonight. But we got people who are protesting. And let's see what we have here. Email address is parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. Were you excited about this event? So having Obama come back, meaning Barack, he spoke 8 years ago. And he was trying to prevent and use his voice to prevent Donald Trump from winning 8 years ago. And he ran and he won. Here's an interesting footnote. Do you know who Hillary Clinton's running mate was, her VP? I'm not going to tell you. I want you to tell me. If anybody knows it, you can text me, get in my chat, and let me know, and I'll mention you, the winner, on the show. Try something different. And what we do in this program, like I said, we try to do things with Parker Twist. We try to do things from the left side. We try to do things from the right side. And at the end of the day, we hope you decide. You may be ticked off with us. We don't do a Republican slant. We don't do a Democratic slant, third party slant. We just try to make things very noticeable to you. So I thought that the Obamas would have no power coming into this election. Who knows? Maybe they did. Not yes, we can. Yes, she can. That may be the new slogan. Kamala, you learned a little bit more about her. Her husband. Which one was a better speaker today? Told more of a story. Was it her husband? Was it Michelle? Or was it Barack? They also talked about mothers. They also talked about legacy. And they also talked about having hope. And not just keeping hope alive, but bringing hope alive. Reemerging of hope. Are we at a time now that we feel there's no hope for us? I mean, do we? Is it that bad? So, what do you say about that? How did you feel, again, about the husband talking? Did you feel, hey, I love hearing that story, how they first met, which was funny? It was very funny. I thought it very much was. We're going to go right here as I'm going across on one of the stations, if I can get it real quick. It's very interesting. Chuck Schumer. Remember I talked about him. I said, man, he is a very interesting guy. He's the kind of guy that will scare you. And this one person right here, I've always been fascinated by her. Her name is Donna Brazile, and she's partly over the Democratic National Convention. And we're going to see about getting her take a little bit. If I can pull her up in time. Okay, here we go. This one's from ABC News. And let me go back a little bit. But did you think Obama's talk was the best talk? What did you think of that? Let's listen in on this.
And you saw former President Obama and Michelle Obama tonight try to shine a light. I mean, they defined Kamala Harris by tying her in to their own hope, which was, of course, his message in 2008 as well. But of course, they all said there's still work to be done. Michelle Obama saying, let us work like our lives depended on it.
Tying Kamala Harris into their own hope and into the story of their mother and mother-in-law, and Marianne Robinson as Lindsay.
And Kamala Harris's life.
And Kamala Harris's life and Kamala Harris's mother. She was raised in a middle-class home by a working mom and tried to thread the needle on this through their own experience and in trying to introduce Kamala Harris to the country and say, look, folks, we only have a few weeks here before the election.
And that perhaps might be the most powerful message here from the Obamas, from what was a very remarkable 1-2 punch here tonight. I mean, that was some serious straight talk. But in addition to the blistering takedown of Donald Trump, I mean, I think you could argue that that is the most blistering takedown of Trump that we have heard from Democrats in recent memory. It was a powerful lifting up of Kamala Harris, passing very clearly that mantle of hope and change now to her. But perhaps most important was the message they had to Americans. Do not get complacent. This is going to be a fight. Barack Obama said they cannot take their eye off the ball. Americans have to get out and vote because they say the future of this very country is on the line.
So why do they think the future of this very country? Is it really that bad? So you think if you have to tell people out there to get out to vote because the future of the country of your life and your lifetime is at risk, what does that tell you? I always say, you know what? You need to know the issues, okay? We give you little bits of news and information, but you got to study for yourself, look up these candidates. And at the end of the day, if you don't vote, okay, and the country doesn't turn out the way that you want it to be, well, then you get what you deserve. But when you're out here saying, look, people, we have got to help change this world, then that means there's a lot of people out there who don't want to change. So what does that tell you about our society?
Yeah, the former First Lady saying, don't wait for that call.
No.
That call from a
Consider this
campaign
your
somewhere.
call, your message, yeah.
Consider this my official ask, she said. Let's go down to the floor. Rachel Scott, what was it like on the floor?
David, there are a few leaders in the Democratic Party that could really energize and command a room, like former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama. In 2016, Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. Tonight, she said, when they insult, when they try to demonize you, when they attack you, do something. Do something. And
so she kind of wanted them to do something then. When they go low, we go high. Well, maybe not. Maybe high means ignore them. But now she's saying when they do something, you do something back. Remember, words have meaning.
those are the words that many here are leaving with, David.
Rachel Scott on the floor. Rachel, thank you. Terry Moran, your thoughts?
Well, David, from the moment Michelle Obama started talking, this crowd, this stadium listened rapt and rapturously to both her and Barack Obama. Of course, they would. They're Democrats. For so many here and so many like them across the country, he's the greatest president of their lifetimes. They'll tell you that. And she's forever a first lady in their hearts. But it was more than that. It was the claim that both Michelle and Barack Obama made, that sense of hope that they stirred across the country can be recaptured and renewed in the candidacy of Kamala Harris. The problem, the challenge, so many people did not feel that hope was realized after the presidency of Barack Obama. So many turned away from it. And the challenge for the Democrats is going to be to capture the mood in this hall that, yes, hope's alive.
And that is interesting because a lot of people in society, they felt, excuse me, that love for Barack the first 4 years. And then after that, it was like, okay. And they felt that his legacy is kind of overrated. But for him to come back home to Chicago, because a lot of people said, well, after he got out the White House, he didn't come back home. So should you, degrade him because he didn't come back home? But a lot of African Americans say, yeah, we voted for him, but what did he really do for us? Some people say, which is funny, that Bill Clinton was the first black president. All right. Do some people feel that Joe Biden, because they said in his 30-something years, he did more than any other president? Now, Barack had 2 terms, 8 years. Joe technically has had 3.5. So does that mean he's done more, maybe more for African Americans too, than Barack Obama? So he can do good speeches. Anybody can do a speech. Not anybody, but some people. All you got to do to persuade people is to believe that you're talking to them and that you believe in them. Did Michelle do it? Did Barack do it? Did even Trump do it? Yes. You can find those niches of people. Do pastors do it? Yes. Do actors do it? Yes. All you got to do is read your audience and your group and your pulpit and say, hey, all I got to do is give a little bit hope and compassion and sympathy and maybe bring people on my side and get them to do whatever I need them to do, whether as a politician to vote for me, whether as an actor to watch my movie, whether as a pastor, again, maybe to give money. But you're giving people the thing of, hey, those people who are talking to me really care for me. This is Terry Moran, and I really like his truthfulness, that some people thought Barack, at the end of his term, didn't do what he said he'd do.
Across the country.
And it was really interesting, Terry, just a quick follow, because I was studying the folks in the crowd here in the convention hall during one of the very sort of quiet moments during the former president's speech, when he talked about having to listen to your fellow Americans, listen to your neighbors, the freedom to make choices and have a belief system that's different from your neighbors, that's what this country is supposed to be about. It was very quiet in this hall, but you saw a lot of heads sort of nodding when he said, even if you don't agree, it's really time to start listening to your neighbor.
You know, I think there are polls and focus groups that show that Americans don't want to hate each other, right? People talk about a national divorce or a new civil war. The secret of American politics that Obama tried to tap into tonight is that most Americans are still normal. They're going to disagree, but they're pragmatic, fair-minded. They want results. That's what they're waiting to hear from Kamala Harris, how she's going to get them. But they don't want the politics of the past 10 years.
Terry Moran on the floor for us. Terry, thank you. Donna Brazil, let's go to you. We went to you during the Republican convention as well as Reince Priebus when he was with us during the Republican convention. We would ask you night by night how the night went.
So real quick, he said the past 10 years. So the past 10 years would make it 2014. Obama was still president. Well, no, that's when Obama ended. So the past 10 years. So after Obama left, then it went bad. Well, you had Trump. Let me get this right. No, the past 10 years would make it, 2014, Obama was still president. So are you saying that in 2014, in the middle of Obama's second term, that it was bad? Let's go back and think about that. We're just keeping it honest. Here's Donna Brazil. She is a Democrat. She's on ABC News almost every weekend. She's a panelist, and she is totally pro-Democrat. And she makes sometimes weird, awkward jokes.
Night in particular, you have worked with all of these leaders from last night, President Joe Biden, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Tonight, a very different night, but two giant Democratic stars making the case that this is about something larger than even just voting as a Democrat in this country, making an appeal to Democrats, Republicans, independents, and people even somewhere in between, the former president said.
You know, you come to these conventions and you get excited to hear speeches. We heard a lot of speeches, but what concluded this night was not a speech. It was a sermon that inspires us, that tells us that we can go higher, that we can come together, that we can make a hope come back into our lives. I am very excited that the tone as we ended was about making sure that hope comes back, but that means action. Last night, Joe Biden called us to continue the job. And tonight, the Obamas reminded us that hope is still in the air.
Night 2 of the Democratic National Convention. Donna Brazil, we always appreciate your analysis, and we have to be reminded that for Kamala Harris tonight, who was in Milwaukee, she was on her way back when her husband, the second gentleman, was speaking, introducing his wife to the country, reintroducing her and talking a little bit about their relationship. They marked their 10-year anniversary on Thursday when she accepts the nomination here. And we're going to show you this image that she did post just a short time ago. Reports from our Karen Travers that Air Force Two was circling in the air so that the vice president could watch her husband give his speech here at the Democratic National Convention. The message there, love you, Dougie. He'll appreciate that as she plays that voicemail for him once again on their anniversary this Thursday. That first voicemail he left. I'm David Muir here in Chicago with the entire ABC News team. Thank you for being with us here on night 2. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, and I'll see you tomorrow for World News Tonight from all of us at ABC News. Thanks for watching. Nightline is next in GMA, first thing in the morning. Good night.
All right, boy, it looks like we're still on. Woo-hoo. Man. All right, everybody's closing shop. What an interest tonight, Doug. And you wonder why Kamala couldn't be there while her husband is giving this nice speech. He told a story about the voicemail anniversary coming up next couple of days on the day that she officially becomes the nominee for the Democratic Party for President of the United States. It's also their anniversary. You saw Barack Obama. He gave a great speech. He could technically run again in a couple of years. He's still relatively young. Out of all those people, if they hadn't picked Kamala. And another question I have. If Barack Obama hadn't ran for president, would there have been a Donald Trump? Okay. Makes you think. We always talk about the Obamas being in the background, and you think you see them in the background, but to see them up front, they've got power. But how much power do they really have? Again, 8 years ago, 2016, Obama was talking up. Well, yeah, eight years ago, Obama was talking up Hillary Clinton. Just 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton was running, and Barack Obama was finishing up his second term. Do you miss him? Do you think he should have ran or could have ran for a third term? Do you think he could have ran this term? Michelle, everybody was talking about she'd be the go-to person. You saw her speak. Could this have been her nomination speech? How many people would have went behind her? They went behind Kamala. How many people really would have pushed her? Donald Trump watching this. Only thing I say, Donald, talk about the policies. Try not to get with the personalities, but I know you probably will. So is it going to be a landslide? Is it going to be a close race? Donald Trump is saying, get out there and vote. I don't care who you are. Get out there and vote. He's saying it's going to be close. Would it have been this close if Biden had stayed in? How this world would have been if Biden hadn't got on that debate. So coming up, speaking of debates, well, election day is November 5th, but the first debate is September 10th. So September 10th is the first, maybe only debate between Donald Trump and Kamala. And then you have 3 weeks to vote. So is that going to be important for both of them? We're going to have to wait and see. But if anything, get out there and vote. So tomorrow or later on today, we'll be back on again. Check the notification. It'll be day 3 of the National Convention. Have any questions or comments? Email me, parkerman2011@gmail.com. parkerman2011@gmail.com. Telephone number 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Tomorrow, maybe bring snacks. Okay. These days have been long. The first night we did 5.5 hours. And this one, as we look at this live, let me see what I can get you here. How long do you think we've been on the air? We have been on the air. I'm looking at my thing now. Let's see if I can see it good. Of course, it's not letting me see it good. But we got on the air about, let me see. Hasn't been as long as it was yesterday. Trying to see if I can see my time. I can't see it up here. But we came on pretty frazzled because everything was happening so quick. As we keep evolving every day, we're going to get better every day. So I thank you for watching. Tell your friends. We're going to have some snippets, clips of these. Earlier today, we played the 2016 Barack Obama address at the National Democratic Convention, where he thought, again, Hillary Clinton was going to win. If you can, history lesson, go back, watch that. We have 5-second clips, and we've got 5 hours and a half clips. Wow. So we thank you for supporting us. And we will hopefully get some time tomorrow. We can give you an update on day 1 and day 2 and fact check. So day 1 was Biden giving his farewell address and kind of passing the baton. Day 2 was a Barack Obama saying, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. And then saying, now let's look to the future. And so now Wednesday is Bill Clinton. We'll see what he's going to say because he's part of the past. And Kamala's husband, who's talking about the future. And then Kamala on day 4, the future is now. So give it a couple weeks. We'll see how this has been, who is really in the race, who's beating who, but it's going to be fascinating. So I'm Anthony Parker, and you're watching the Democratic Convention Day 2 on Keeping It Honest. We don't just keep it simple. We don't just keep it real. We keep it honest. I'm Anthony Parker Alexander, and of course, God bless.